And Julia Clouter. Thank you, Jack. Jack Churchill and Julia Clouter from Scanning Pens, who many of you will have heard of, a company that's been that Jack and his co-founder Toby founded in 2003. So really they've been around for a very, very long time and have been providing support for hundreds and hundreds of children and educators and companies around the world. So we are very lucky to have them here. The time is 3:03 p.m. British Standard Time, British Summer Time, sorry, in the afternoon. And I would like to welcome on Julia and Jack. Thank you very much for being here. And I will hand over to you two to begin this event, Support for Reading.
Thanks, Ludo. Should we share our PowerPoint, or is that the best thing to do?
Yes, that's probably the best thing to do. Brilliant. So okay. You can go ahead and share.
Let's try this one. Can you see anything? Can you see my messy desktop, or can you see the presentation?
We can see an increasingly less messy screen.
Okay, good.
Brilliant.
Just there. How's that?
Perfect.
Fantastic. So yeah, I would just say thank you, Ludo, and thank you so much for including us in your tutoring festival. We're really sort of honoured to be with you. I love tutors. My daughter's just got into her secondary school of choice with quite a bit of help from a tutor who came to visit us for many Sundays over the last few months. So I've seen firsthand the true benefits in recent years of some support from a tutor. I also, I'm dyslexic, so at school I got a lot of extra support and help with particularly maths, as we've just discussed, but English as well. So I think there is, it's such an important part of young people's lives, is giving them that extra boost and support. So thank you all so much for the work you do every day of the week. So yeah, I'm Jack Churchill, co-founder and CEO of Scanning Pens. I set the business up back in 2003, as Ludo said, with my university friend, Toby Sutton. We ran a number of businesses, but it was the pen scanners that always captured our imagination. And we could just see that something that was small and portable, that could quickly run over text and you hear it aloud, could be really exciting and viable. And it just took us about 12 years to actually get hold of some technology that was going to do a really good job of it. I'm really proud to have Julia Clouter, who's at Scanning Pen's Head of Education, on today's event. She's got more than 20 years of expert knowledge of working in schools as a Senko, and she's been a huge asset to our growing team here at Scanning Pens. So let me progress the slides. So we're going to give a quick introduction to Scanning Pens and dyslexia support. I'm going to run a demonstration of the pens, and probably a bit like working with children and animals, be a bit generous to us if it doesn't always work first time. But yeah, we'll give you a quick demo of the pens, show you how they work, and then we'll have a breakout workshop. And then my colleague Julia will take over and provide more of the sort of intelligent stuff around education and all that sort of stuff, which I possibly can't comment on at all. So yeah, this is me. Yeah, for about 12 years, Toby and I ran this business, and we had no one working with us at all. And we went to lots of events and trade shows, and we talked a lot about dyslexia, and we had a pen scanner that was quite chunky and had a voice a bit like a little bit like Professor Stephen Hawking, but a bit more of a digital voice. Whereas now we've got new technology, which is fast, accurate, and a really nice voice. So young people and adults really appeal to what we've created. And yeah, as I mentioned before, the pen scans over a word or a line of text, and it reads it back within a matter of seconds. So previously, with our previous generations, some of the children found it a bit frustrating that there was a slight lag in the reading time and the voice was slightly unusual. So we've overcome a lot of these issues now with, we've worked closely with CPen, who's a Swedish company, and we've developed this technology with them, and they carry on doing the research and development, and we do the selling all over the world. So our company's grown from just the two of us 4 years ago to we've now got over 100 employees, and we have offices in the US, Canada, Australia, and India. So it's all quite exciting. We do also have this, you can probably see there's a bag behind me, Succeed with Dyslexia, which is a bit of a corporate social responsibility we do. It's not formally established as such, but it is a way that we try and promote positivity around dyslexia and try and help others find out more about dyslexia. Most people don't even know about dyslexia, and I've heard even recently of people getting into their 80s and 90s and finding out they've got dyslexia, and they're so angry that they never found out as a child because they could have had more support, as it were. As well as raising awareness, we're very keen to present the toolbox approach, which Julia will mention later, which is that there's a whole range of great resources out there, not just scanning pens, but other stuff which can help you get through your day, get from A to B in a more efficient manner, and help you operate alongside your peer group, which is so important in order to keep up in life. What we don't want is people dropping out of school and feeling like they can't be part of the classroom, and then going on to not be able to get work. And Julia might touch on it later, but there is this school to prison pipeline, which we need to try and break. We need to stop people, feeling rejected and neglected in education. And we need to get them out the other end with qualifications and with skills and the confidence that they can operate alongside everyone else, because so much of it is just those various aspects. We were very fortunate the last couple of years. We picked up a couple of probably the two biggest awards that we could possibly want. The BET Awards, which is the big education technology awards. We won Company of the Year last year. And then this year we won the Queen's Award for Enterprise for international trade. So that's the highest business award you can get. So absolutely blown away to get those little trophies, which I can put on my mantelpiece. So the Reader Pen is this little portable device you can hold in your hand. We'd say that it's good for maybe 7, 8-year-olds and above. You need large enough hands to be able to grip the pen and hold it and run it along the page. So it's probably not that suitable for younger children because they need to be able to control it in a sensible way. The pen can do 4 main things. It can read, it can decode, it can transfer, and it can record. So those are built into the features of the pen, which are text reader, dictionary, scan to file, voice recorder. So the text reader, I would say, is the most important part of this pen. Is the ability to scan over that word and instantly hear it aloud, and then you can carry on with your reading. So if you can't read at all, this isn't going to be the product for you. But if you can read a bit and you get stuck on words, so you're expanding your vocabulary, we talk about in our company taking risks with your reading. You're learning new words, and in order to take those risks, you need to be looking at more advanced materials as you go through the education curriculum onto university, and all the time you'll be presented with different words and phrases which you might be unsure of. So you can quickly hear them aloud. You might recognize it then. If you're not sure, you can select dictionary and hear those words aloud. The scan to file is great for people who are in the library, let's say, want to capture text and then upload it to the computer. And then there is also a voice recorder. So you could say to your teacher, look, I'm just going to today want to listen, and can I leave the pen at the front of the class just recording today's lesson, and then they can play it back later on. So these are just little extra features which can really help someone to take on board more information during their daily life. The technology, I like to call it mid-tech. So it's not kind of like an iPad. It's not super sophisticated. It's kind of mid-tech. So meaning, it's quite sophisticated, but it's easy to use. Within a couple of minutes, someone is up and running with a device like this and quickly seeing the results. They don't have to learn anything. There's not a huge amount of training required. And so, people are generally reading quite confidently, quite quickly. It's got a built-in battery, so you don't need to worry about recharging it probably more than once a week, and it just plugs straight into your USB recharger there, micro USB. And yeah, it's got a dictionary, so you can quickly look up the words. We were so pleased to add the Oxford Primary Dictionary to it because it's a really nice, simple, straightforward dictionary. That means when you scan over the word cat, it says a fluffy household pet with whiskers and 2 ears that chases mice. Whereas the Collins Dictionary, which is another option on the pen, you can just select. If you scan over cat, it says computer-aided training, computer-aided teaching, and things like that. So having a range of dictionaries is useful for different audiences as such. There's no Wi-Fi requirement, so you can use this on the bus. You can use this, doing your homework. You can use this in the classroom, even if there's no internet. And I like to say it's distraction-free. So, I know if I ask my children who are sort of around 10, 12 years old, if I ask them to use a tablet to get on with some studies, they will typically be, doing that for a few minutes, and then they'll get distracted. They'll go off and start playing some games and other things. So I love the fact that you can have your magazine or your book, and you can just be reading and doing the task at hand. And then once you've finished it, you can then get on and play with your apps and other things. But again, we talk about a toolbox approach. So during the course of your day, if you've got access to different types of materials, that is fantastic. So the different types of pens. So the reader pen is the everyday pen for supporting reading. The exam reader pen is a device we've made specially for exams. So this can be used in any JCQ exam without accommodation. So your GCSEs, your A-levels, you do not need accommodations to use this pen. Anyone can use this pen in an exam as long as it's part of their normal way of working. And the students back in the exam hall, headphones plugged in, managing on their own, sitting with their peer group rather than being put in a separate room. The Lingo pen is a translating device. It supports people learning new languages. And the Connect pen is a simple kind of Bluetooth device. You swipe and it sends it to your phone or tablet or computer. I've mentioned this already about the exam reader pen. So yeah, for us, this was a massive breakthrough, having a pen approved for use in exams. And this is supporting thousands of kids with dyslexia, reading difficulties, get the results they deserve every summer when they take their exams. So, even the English reading paper, you're allowed to use this device, whereas you're not allowed a human reader. So this is, a huge step forward. So I'm just going to do a quick live demo. I'm conscious of time, Julia, so I will give you some time to talk in a minute, but let me just do a very quick demo. I'm just going to see if I can change my camera or my mic to the one. And my desk, magazine. Hope you can all see this. I've got a British Dyslexia Association magazine. I've just turned the pen on and it says text reader on the screen. I'm going to select that. I might just put the line down. Contrast. And I'm going to scan over some words here.
The news that Shropshire dyslexia. Did
you hear something, Ludo? Yeah, good. Okay.
Yes.
Now, if I'm not sure about a word, I can just highlight it on the screen.
Dyslexia.
And hopefully you can see it's gone big and it repeats it over and over again.
Dyslexia.
If you're not sure what that word is, you press menu and you go to definition and it will start.
Dyslexia. Dyslexia, DSLKS, in a developmental disorder which can cause learning difficulty in one or more of the areas of reading, writing, and numeracy non-technical needs.
So there we go. You see that, and then you can also go into the dictionary area of the pen, and if you're interested in a word, you can just quickly run over the word technology.
Technology.
And you'll see that word on the screen.
Technology. Technology noun. Technologies. Technology is the study of machinery and the way things work. Technological.
Great. Anyway, I think you've got the idea. And what's great about the dictionary is it stores the history of the words you've scanned in. So you can see the words you've got stuck on. You can maybe go and show that to your tutor or teacher and say, hey, these are the words I struggle with this week. Can you help me with those? And build some flashcards maybe. Great. So I'm just going to go back to my presentation a second. And hope you all got a little bit of a flavour of what the pen does from that. And there we go. I'm just going to change my back to my Jabra Pro. Great. So we're going to have a little talk now about our first questions, I think. So just before we go there, these pens are great for supporting EAL, dyslexia, just supporting even people's pronunciation and word comprehension and understanding. So, and we've got a whole load of videos on our website which you can go and review if you're interested in finding out more. So can we go to the breakout rooms, please? I think we're going to, in room 1 with Julia, you're going to talk about what are the challenges to recognizing a student's literacy difficulties in your practice. And then room 2, what sort of resources are available to support my knowledge of dyslexia?
We're both happy to answer questions about pens if something occurred to you while you were watching the demonstration. So how do we do this, Ludo? Advise us.
So there are 2 breakout room options. That's correct, isn't it, Julia?
That's right.
And you can select, as the attendee of this event, you can select the breakout room that you wish. So as Jack Simmons has very kindly set up, you'll see that the breakout rooms, there is a Jack Churchill option and a Julia Clouter option. And on the screen right now, you can see what Jack and what Julia will be discussing. So it is up to the attendees right now to select the room that they would like to go into. And in just a second, Jack Churchill and Julia Clouter will be going into those 2 rooms there to answer the questions. Does that make sense to everyone? Is there anyone who's not sure what will be happening for the next 10 to 15 minutes? If so, Jack Simmons, we're going to have to start making these distinctions here, will be on hand to answer any tech questions.
Ludo, I think I would.
Yes, everyone else should be popping back in. We've got till 4 p.m, of course.
Oh, we've got longer. Okay, sorry, I was thinking we had less time. So
no, we've got till 4 p.m. I think. Julia,
oh, fantastic.
Yeah, great.
We were just having a really interesting chat because Julia brought up about sort of looking at what's behaviour and getting to the root, because teachers sort of see behaviour without realising actually it's the literacy. And it's just really fascinating that that's come up, Julia, because Jack Simmons, we were messaging separately because I was teaching. I got given a class of 24 this morning to do, and I'm not a teacher, I can colour supervise. And the 2 children that were like causing mayhem were the 2 with reading difficulties, and they're year 4, and just being that sort of cheeky clown in the class, wanting attention and everything, because they were just struggling with what they were doing. And it's fascinating, and just the fact, Julia, I was only bringing it up because of what you just literally just said in there. It was just classic scenario, and to sort of keep them under wrap, to keep the whole class in line was really tricky this morning.
Yeah.
And we were doing comprehension, which of course was probably their worst nightmare.
Definitely. Well, we very much see that our technology, isn't there to replace the teacher or the tutor. It's there to support the education in a way, and that you don't always need to be sitting with the most needy child. It gives more freedom for the teaching assistant or teacher or tutor to move around and support more people, as it were. And also that independence is so key too. If they always feel, even as teenagers, that they have to have someone sit next to them all the time, I think that could be quite
definitely
difficult.
As they get older. Definitely as they get older.
Julia, you unmuted. I don't know if you going to add. You're still muted. You're muted, Julia. There we go.
So one of the things that I found really helpful is to make sure that you have got that contact with that student, that you've spent some time doing that recognition thing. And it's so helpful when you can stop and say, this is tough. I know this is going to be a toughie. I don't want to share with anybody else in this classroom this is going to be tough for you, but between you and me, is this the lesson that you really don't like very much? And if you can have those one-to-one discussions, that's a really good starting point, because then you can develop almost like a secret code between each other. So when you've got a student whose anxiety is rising, you can even have a code word or a sign. Like I would have a handshake system with my students going into class, and if they were feeling particularly on edge or anxious or had had a bad lesson, the previous lesson, were already feeling very stressed, I would just say, how you doing? They go, oh, it was all fish last lesson. And I'd say, oh dear, righto, well, let's take a breath, and we'll just go steady today. And building those individual relationships is so important, because you can then they trust you, that you will hold that difficulty and that insecurity safe for them, and that you will keep an eye out and support their need at the point where they have that need. So I think that's really helpful. Otherwise, you see behavior instead of seeing the child, and then before you know it, that's what you're talking about. You're talking about, stop that, or the next thing that will happen will be, and then you're into the sanctions conversation, and you know that you're going down a cul-de-sac the minute you start having those conversations. It's much better to have that supportive conversation at the outset, and let them know that you're on side with them and that you have an understanding. So I'll share my screen if that's okay. I'll see if I can do that.
Just while Julia's doing that, someone just asked me where the pens are available. They are on our website, scanningpens.com. They're also on Amazon, and we do free trials for schools and for parents now. So that was something we launched, the free trials for parents. We launched that last year at the start of the COVID outbreak, and it's been pretty popular actually. Julia, we had in our session, we had quite a few different interesting technologies being mentioned. Someone talked about Otter. People talked about Dragon. So there was a bit of a range of supports being mentioned, and also Word, that you can just dictate now into Word. Very simple.
Oh, so helpful. I use Word. If I'm formulating something I've got to write, like a blog or anything, I will turn on Word and let that help me. So helpful.
Did anyone have any final questions about the pens before we move on to kind of the more educational side of things? Did anyone have anything they wanted to ask, or any immediate questions?
What age did you say to start with? About 7, did you say?
I said 7, 8 is the sort of age, because you kind of need large enough hands to be able to hold the pen, I believe.
Hold it.
So,
okay.
And you need pretty good motor control, I'd say. You need to be able to run it fairly carefully across the page. And some people ask about low vision. I would say if you could use a yellow highlighter pen to highlight a line in a book, then you could get some use out of this pen. But if someone is totally blind, then they're not going to see the line of text. They're not going to be able to scan it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And what reading ability do they need to have? I mean, I heard you say sort of it's not really for somebody that really completely and utterly can't read.
Yeah, I was sort of really referring to children at that point. I think I'd see this more as a tool for supporting someone's increasing reading ability. But obviously, if someone can't read at all, whether they be a child or an adult, they could use this to access their homework. Or Julia and I are doing quite a bit of work in prisons now, and we're coming across groups of people who can't read at all, and they don't have anyone there to support them. So this kind of technology is now being used in prison cells to give them access to letters, paperwork, books. And in fact, I once said to I think he was about 12 years old, a student at a conference who was very dyslexic, and he said he'd been using the pen to read whole books, which just totally, blew me away. He said he'd read some Shakespeare and even bits of the Bible, and there I was saying I didn't think this was for someone who couldn't read at all, and he was saying, well, I couldn't read, and I read my first book using this pen. And so it's very bad for me to make sweeping assumptions, because often I get disproved. But I guess I was just generalizing just to make out the typical kind of student, I think, is someone who's trying to expand their vocabulary. But I think Julia's probably going to get into more of this now.
Yeah, it's a real life changer for people.
Oh, thanks, Amanda.
I think it is. And as a teacher, inevitably we want control. And so the useful thing about the pens is that you can actually just use them to read a single word and direct students just to read the single word and not scan everything in sight, because what we want them to do is decode where they need decoding support. And the pens can be set to a word pause or a punctuation pause, so it will do that. Or you can alleviate the anxiety of having to look up a word in a dictionary, which is a big deal if you've got dyslexia, because you might not even be able to go through your alphabet easily. That might be tricky, or it might be something you've got on your desk already to support you to look up words in the dictionary. But if you're then going through that cognitive overload of, I don't understand this word, I was trying to process this piece of learning, now I've got to get another book, I've now got to try and find the letter in the alphabet to try and look this up, and my speed of processing and my short-term memory is quite weak, so I might even forget the word that I'm looking up at that point in time. You've actually put a really significant challenge into the hands of that dyslexic learner. And looking up in a book can be a break moment in a class. In other words, it can cause that student to break and just think, can't do it, can't cope, this is beyond me, you're asking me to do too many things. Cognitive overload, end of. But with the pen, you can at least be in control of that decoding right at the point where you need the support, which is so important, because that's the bit that builds your independence and your self-esteem and your self-confidence. So for me, that's kind of one of the crucial elements of the pen. It's not just the reading, it's that it will hold that additional task and do it for you without putting additional steps in place that, you know, that other challenge that you really didn't need because you were interested in what you were being taught, that initial challenge that you came across. So I'm going to give you some ideas about a toolbox of activities that you might want to think about having with you. I will show you my little toolkit. Here it is. This is my little reading toolkit, and you can fill this full of bits and pieces that might just be helpful for that student who is showing signs of either anxiety or feeling like they're not particularly coping very well as you are teaching. And you can say, hey, well, this is an opportunity for us to have a bit of an explore here. So let me just see if I can do something fun and open up my visualizer. Hopefully you'll be able to see it. I have a terrible clicking habit. I open up all sorts of things. There we go. Right, let's maximize that. Okay, so here we've got a few things in my literacy toolkit. It's a great distraction device. If someone is just about to go into a little bit of a meltdown, instead of having that experience, we can look through and think, right, well, what tools might be useful for you right now? And as you start to learn about that student, you'll start to realize that there are things that they will return to or ask you for, so you've got that strategy with you, and they'll associate you coming in with this wonderful little box of helpers and think, oh yes, I'm supported, because I know inside that box might be the thing that will just keep me on task. Maybe it's that time turner to make me aware that I've only got 20 minutes to do that particular activity, or that I'm allowed to stop after that 20 minutes and take a breather, or however long it is, 5, 10. You can get these turners with lots of different times. It's a really great little device to keep people on track, keep your students on track, and help them to feel that the task is not never ending. I think for dyslexic students, particularly if you challenge them to do something that's quite tricky, it's really good for them to know that it is going to end and something nice will happen afterwards. For older students, I would recommend a stopwatch, equally as useful, just to give them that time of trigger, or they know that they've got to spend a certain amount of time just focusing on one part of the task, because you can get tied up for a long period of time worrying about one aspect and then not finishing the rest. This is particularly true in examinations. If you know that you're reading the whole paper through and trying to look at what questions you can answer first, and you've got 10 minutes to do that, you've got a timer, then that will support you to do that activity effectively. This is a Succeed with Dyslexia little card that we made for our little festival of reading. And it's just a really nice card for those younger students that we have made up. And on the back it says rather wonderfully, "We are so proud of you." It's so important to celebrate those reading successes and make sure that we share them, and also share them with parents as well. But any kind of reward has got to be good in your box. Stickers, who doesn't like a sticker? We all like a sticker. And if you gave me one of these stickers and said, "What a great presentation, Julia," I would feel very happy for the rest of the day, no problem at all. They are great at supporting that well-being. And even if it's just daft and the students are quite old, you can always have a joke about it and say, you know, "I'd really love to give you a sticker. Hey, I know you're 14, but you know, you're still stickerable." And even that conversation can just boost the self-esteem. These came from my son's school, just little through the postcards, which I think are really lovely to reward achievement. So these things I think really essential, those rewards. This one here is a reading record. So for every 10 minutes of reading time, a little sticker goes onto the card. And this also can be used as a bookmark. I think it's helpful if you're doing that to really make it crystallize in that learner's head that they were able to achieve X amount of time reading. And then you can say, okay, well, let's try that plus another 10 seconds and that plus another 10 seconds if you're stretching. So definitely record it and reward it. Books on audio file. If you know in advance that you have got a class reader that you're going to be dealing with, most students seem to carry their own headphones these days, but if you can get the class reader onto an audio file, that will alleviate a lot of stress when you get to the reading part of your lesson that you've got to tackle. If you know in advance you've got a student who will appreciate that, that's great. Tangle toys, I think, are really helpful because you can use these under the table and no one need know you're having a fiddle because you're feeling a bit stressed about the task in hand. I often find that students will come back and just point at that and say, "Can I have that one, please? That I need that one." Reader pen, I would put in, definitely. Sticky bits. If you are reading bits of text and you find words that you can't decode, and you can get smaller little post-it note stickies as well. Sometimes I just say, well, just cover the words you didn't understand. And actually you can then work out if you've given a text that is just too complex for that student, because the more bits of sticky that are on that page, the more challenging that student found that piece of reading to do. And for a teacher, that can be a bit of a wake-up call, because sometimes we just assume that they will automatically decode the work that we are presenting them with. So I find that just helpful as an indicator to me that I then need to look at the reading materials a lot more carefully and perhaps find something more appropriate for that student. And we can have a conversation and I can say, gosh, do you know, I know that if you are struggling to read 8 out of 10 words, then I'm not doing my job properly. I should have found something better for you. I should have done better. And let's make sure that doesn't happen again, because I want you to feel really happy when you come into my lesson and not feel like I'm going to give you something that you can't achieve. I always carry a packet of these different colours. I'll tell you a little story. There was a young man who was really great in my English lessons. He was magic and we didn't have problems. It was all fine. But when I taught him in a library lesson and he had to go into those books and choose books, he would kick off. And I would dread library lessons because I'd think, oh no, we're going to have a kick off and I won't avoid it. It's just going to happen. And what I discovered when I took him to the side and I said, hey, you know, we don't have to do this every time. We can work out what the problem is, you know. And I said, tell me what reading is like for you. And he said, it hurts my head. And I said, why does it hurt your head? What's going on? He said, all the words jump up and down all the time. And I hate the library lessons because the light in here is really horrible and it makes it even worse. Ah, I said, okay, why don't we just go and have a play with my coloured overlays and see if any of these are helpful? And he put the coloured overlay down on the paper and he looked at me and he went, is it supposed to stay still then? He honestly, he honestly thought that all the words and letters were supposed to jumble around and he was supposed to catch them, and that was everybody's experience of reading. And he was almost in tears when he realised that he put the overlay down, he could actually do reading. So those I know, those conversations, so helpful. Here's another great little tool that I would have in my box, and that's just a little window so that as you are doing your little bit of reading, you can take out all the information that is not important and you just focus on what is. Okay. Oh, that's another little thing. This is just my little keypad of ideas of how to remember bits and pieces when I'm working with a student who has difficulty remembering perhaps parts of a text and we're reviewing. So if you can have a sort of a leveled card so that you can go through and predictably talk through a text by working through, how are these the same? Which one's not? Which one's different? What happened to these? For students who are developing a vocabulary, if you start to use these questions over and over, they start to feel confident that you're not going to ask them something that they cannot answer. They will know what's coming when you get into a routine. Okay, so there's my happy little box of bits and pieces of supports that I think are pretty helpful. There's low tech, there's mid tech, there's high tech. Low tech are all these things in my box, really, with the exception of the pen, which is more of a medium tech. And then you've got your computer-based applications, your text help, your Office 365 applications and tools that you might choose to use. Okay. If every lesson that you taught started, I wear glasses because I need them to access reading and text. I don't function particularly well without my glasses. This is an accessibility positive classroom. If you have got stuff that you need to use to help you, let's get it out, because that's what we're going to do. Students are really anxious about sharing, even putting their glasses on, aren't they? But if you can help to support that culture of this is just the stuff we use to do the job we're doing. If you're always talking about it, always sharing that thought or putting up a poster or giving gentle reminders, yep, some of us need some reading support, great, let's go get it, not a problem. And I would really encourage you to be that positive modeler in your classroom for using additional support. Okay, so we were talking a little bit earlier, and I'm going to get us to a breakout very soon. But I want to just signpost for you that I've written a little booklet, kindly Scanning Pens allowed me to do that, and it's called the Literacy Passport, and it contains some supporting documentation that are checks and tick boxes and so on that can help you to identify the learning difficulties that you might be seeing in front of you in a classroom or with an individual student. And it takes the heavy lifting out of writing reports because there are lots of little tick boxes. So the Literacy Passport is available via the Scanning Pens website. I think I've put a link onto here, which we can make sure is available to you as a free download. We've also put lots of additional supporting resources into the shared area that we'll be happy for you to take away from this session. When you are looking at students, you are thinking about their specific learning differences, their SPLDs, and it's an umbrella of needs. And working out what that umbrella of needs are can be really tricky sometimes. So here's a form that you can use to help you to work them out. This booklet is full of helpful little forms. It's full of ideas about how to record, ideas for strategies. So it's also got supports if you are using a reader pen or want to use a reader pen. There's some IEPs that are pre-written for you, ideas about how to support students with English as an additional language. So, okay, lots of good stuff in here. But I think probably one of the most useful forms for you will be the SPLD Literacy Information Gathering form, because it goes through the key indicators for dyslexia, dyspraxia or DCD, which is the developmental coordination disorders that make some students really struggle with their concentration, listening skills, understanding and organisation, and also attention deficit hyperactivity disorders. And so you can look at these key statements and just quietly note away and help you to build a profile and understand the profile of that student, so that you can either talk to the Senko or talk to the tutor who might be in charge, so that you can say, actually, I'm recording these difficulties over time. And if you are seeing them once, twice, 3 times, then you're starting to see a pattern, then you need to start sharing that information, because the sooner that you can get these identified, the better it is for that student. Early literacy support is crucial. The longer we leave it, the more behaviour challenges and the more social emotional difficulties emerge for that student. So I would really encourage you to use some of the forms in here to support gathering information. Okay, I'm going to put this one down, and I think we're going to head into another little workshop. So we've got 2 directions that we can go in, and again, it will just be a short workshop. I think it'll be about 5 minutes. So if you could come along to the next workshop, and we will do room 1 will be me, and that is the impact of unidentified learning needs or literacy needs on mental health and well-being. And Jack, I think you're going to break out and do how can we support during access, or how can we support access arrangements for examinations?
Great.
Okay. So we'll take 6 minutes, 5 minutes. Righto.
Yeah, that sounds good. It's 3:50 now, and I believe, yeah, Jack has very quickly remade those rooms, so you can see now that exactly as Julia just said, Julia is learning needs mental health and Jack is access arrangements for exams. So please take yourself into those rooms as you wish, and if you're able to, please turn on your videos so that Jack and Julia aren't talking to a name on a screen.
It's never long enough, but it was perfect. And we've got a few minutes left, haven't we, Ludo?
We do. So if Jack and Julia, if you've kind of finished what you had intended for this session, which I'm sure you guys have, are there any final questions that you guys wanted to ask Jack and Julia? You've got them both in a room right here, right now. Please do fire away.
I'm just gonna, if nobody has got a question, Jack Simmons, we were having a sort of sideline chat to this, and I brought up we were talking about, you know, the cost of this against the cost of a TA in the class. And so Jack, I asked Jack Churchill the question, and there is, you know, they've obviously got all of that information. So on the costing that actually if a school takes this on board, you know, well, Jack Churchill, you gave an example that a school can save, like, you know, £500,000 over 3 years by having these pens instead of school staff.
That was a big college. Yeah.
Well, yeah, big college, whatever. But, you know, it is doable. It just, you know, it takes that time, and it's having that foresight going forward, isn't it?
Absolutely.
I'll put a link to on the Exam Reader Pen website. I'll put a link in the chat here. There's it's called the calculator, and you can actually go in and you can calculate the costs. Most schools, when it comes to exams and things, they don't even calculate how much they're spending on exams. They just bring in human readers and train them up and have separate rooms. Often they pull teachers out of other lessons to bring them in to help with exams. Those students have lost out on their teacher teaching them. There's quite wide consequences.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah, pretty amazing.
What's your biggest I couldn't say achievement, but like is the prison getting into prisons must be just like immense.
I think the getting into the JCQ exams was turned our business from being a business that
of course
our wives were telling us, come on, move on, get a proper job. So that was a game changer overnight. And then this year, having our pens approved for use in cells in prisons is enormous, because that's going to have such an impact on the 50% of people in those prisons who struggle with literacy. And I'm really excited by that. So
so you should
be. This is such a bright future, and already backed up by so many achievements, as the Shropshire Business Awards demonstrated. So I'd like to say thank you very, very much to both Jack and to Julia for that really good kind of a couple of great breakout rooms and really good separation of what Scanning Pens does, as well as that demonstration. As those of you who've joined us for an event already today will know, we are asking attendees to fill in the big survey that we are conducting over the course of this week to collate information about what you as tutors want to hear more from, how we can deliver that, and how, of course, you've found some of the events so far. So please, even if you're not to complete that right now, please do click on that link so you've got it up on your laptop so you can fill it in if you haven't already. You can find out all the information about how to contact Jack and Julia on many of the links we've had so far, but also in the community, in the festival hub. And finally, there's been a few photos already today of behind the scenes photos of desks, photos of what attendees have enjoyed so far. Anything to spread the word of the Love Tutoring Festival and of what we've learned today would be much appreciated. So please do so if you can. It is 4:01. That has been a wonderful hour of work on the reader pen and on scanning pens in general, and I hope you've all enjoyed it very much. So thank you very much, and cheerio for now.